there was a news item that came out today as we're recording this episode that China may be hosting a meeting between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas in Beijing, like now.
Because they're such great peacemakers.
Yeah, so like this is my question. What do you think is up with that?
Well, if you agree with my hypothesis that China was involved directly with Hamas, this is a regrouping after the attack to plan out what the future will be in that region. And just out of just interesting parallelism, there's a whole group of KMT legislatures heading to Beijing as we speak. So you can imagine the interesting conversations that would be happening between the Taiwanese legislatures that are going to China before President-elect Lai gets inaugurated, in a month from now, on the 20th of May. So there's a lot of things going on.
It's a strange grouping of bedfellows.
Well, I mean, I think what is interesting about the PA and Hamas meeting is it is being portrayed. I read this article in the South China Morning Post today, and essentially it was being portrayed, like you said, Chris, it's because there's such great peacemakers. Like this is part of China trying to, extend their winning streak in the Middle East since they got Iran and Saudi Arabia to, talk to each other. Now they're getting Hamas and the Palestinian Authority to get together and, maybe they could mediate is how it's being portrayed.
Right. I mean, if you support both of these groups, then, it makes sense that you can make peace because, the one who holds the gold makes the rules, right? Isn't that how it works? So the interests of China in this whole picture goes back to, again, the idea that this could be part of their overall strategy of the three wars. And, whether or not they want to see this conflict go on or not is a question. Now, obviously, Hamas is greatly diminished at this point. And if Hamas and the PLO make a temporary peace agreement because China tells them to, then maybe they can have a united front. Now, one of the things that have happened in the UN is that there were several votes in the UN about creating a Palestinian state, and the only country that prevented it was the United States. And so this could be an attempt by China to show a united front of Palestinian groups and to say that, we'll promise we won't attack Israel, and we're going to make peace and everything's good. Just don't vote against this UN security resolution to create a Palestinian state, and everything will be okay. And so a lot of pressure will be put on Israel to accept it, and many people in Israel will not accept it. But the unfortunate thing is that it doesn't matter what Israel thinks in the UN Security Council, because if the United States votes with or abstains with this vote of making a Palestinian state, in my opinion, the Middle East will become more unstable because now they'll be able to basically legitimize their attacks on Israel at a state level, and they'll have support of a lot of countries. The Palestinians already have embassies all around the world, as opposed to Taiwan, which is losing them. Anyway, so that's the another thing is interesting about the PRC is after the attack in October 7th, they were very non-supportive of Israel. They basically said, okay, you guys, stop fighting. Everything's, if you just stop fighting, everything's gonna be fine. And the Israelis were very upset by this attitude that that almost like they ignored the fact that they had these terrorist groups had slaughtered civilians, 1,200 civilians, and done worse things than just slaughter them. And it wasn't only until I believe a month or two ago that China even showed up and sent an envoy to Israel to make it to start talking to the Israelis. I think a day or two after the attack, President Biden flew to Israel. He was there and really supported the Israelis and saying, we're with you. Do what you have to do. So it's very strange, and also the anti-Semitism that's going on in the social media in China, highly regulated system. The CCP has allowed a lot of anti-Semitism to grow and to proliferate all throughout China, and a lot of people who watch this kind of thing were noting that it's the first time that China has not done anything to stop it.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago I did an episode about anti-Semitism in China, and it's a big thing. YouTube demonetized that episode for anti-Semitism.
Reporting on anti-Semitism is anti-Semitism,
according to YouTube. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So again, each one of these things by themselves don't make the verdict, but I think if in a court of public opinion, at least, I think it's something to consider and to think about. And now then there was the attack that Israel did against the IRGC generals in Damascus, and was able to kill the leader of the IRGC, who was responsible for conducting training and supplies to Hezbollah, a terrorist group. IRGC is also considered a terrorist group by the United States. So when people kill terrorists, it's a good thing. And Israel has been killing Iranian IRGC generals and other people for the last few years. So it's not like suddenly Israel kills these Iranians and the whole world goes upside down. Now, what was different, of course, was that they struck a building next to the embassy, which was a consulate. And so, there's an uproar about, diplomatic immunity and all this kind of stuff. But, when the Iranians had Hezbollah blow up our embassies in Beirut in the 1980s, they didn't really have a problem with that. So Iran has used its embassies to bring weapons and explosives and bad people in and out of a country to do bad things. So I don't think that's a big deal. But the response by Iran, ballistic missiles, drones, and cruise missiles attack on Israel. Luckily, Israel and its allies were able to knock them out. And only, unfortunately, a little girl was injured. Arab-Israeli girl was injured. But what was interesting was that a lot of the missiles misfired, and they killed Iranians or injured Iranians before they even left the border of Iran. So that's the good news, because Iran's technology is obviously not the snuff, and they killed their own people, just like Hamas did in a lot of the rocket attacks against Israel. A lot of those rockets landed in Gaza. So I guess my conclusion is, I guess the most important thing is, I think we should look into China's support for terrorism around the world. I think we really should investigate this. I think it's a serious issue.
You were mentioning these things that happened before October 7th, like the meetings that were happening. I didn't understand the significance of Mahmoud Abbas going to Saudi Arabia and Hamas going to Saudi Arabia.
Well, Mahmoud Abbas and the head of Hamas together went to. Basically, they ended up in Saudi Arabia together at the same time. It shows that there's a connection between.
I thought there was something about Saudi Arabia that was involved in this Iran China stuff.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because those two groups, the Hamas and PA, are kind of supposedly like opposing each other. They're tied to Iran, but then they go to Saudi Arabia. Like those again, it's very strange bedfellows getting together, right?
Right. That's what's strange. If they're already meeting in the same place at the same time with the same people, they can't hate each other that much. And the fact is that maybe they're already friends, and they're just having a temporary hate time, and China says, "Oh, you guys get together, everything's gonna be fine." They go, "Oh, thanks, yeah, it's great." So look, the PLO and Hamas both don't like the fact that Israel exists, and they would prefer it not to exist. They both have the same goal. It's just that their ideology is different, and maybe their strategy is different. But they both claim the same land, and they don't want Israel to exist. So they both have a common enemy from a point of view of their end goals. And so I'm suspicious about any claims that there is a major hostility going on between them. In fact, I'm sure the PLO is trying to manage the fact that if there were ever elections in the West Bank, they would have a major problem because they would lose. So anything they can do to survive and to stay in power, they're going to do. I think as time goes on, if we find more information about this connection between Hamas and China, or China and other groups, the Maoist groups are still active in India. They're causing mayhem in lots of different places. If there's proof that China is supporting the Islamic groups in the Philippines and all around Asia. I mean, these are things that I think are important because they have an interest in disrupting governments that are not kowtowing to them in the big picture of things. And then, it would be because Hamas is not a state. The victims of there's 40 countries that had their citizens killed by Hamas or taken hostage by Hamas. If you're a victim or you have family members that are a victim, how do you complain about this? Well, the normal way is you get your government to go to the UN, bring the country that was involved to explain what happened, and if they can't give a good explanation, then you have the right to go to the International Court of Justice in The Hague and pursue these people who were in charge of the country for crimes against the people who were injured. So if China is helping Hamas and the PA are not countries, then you only can go. I guess you can go to Iran, but that doesn't do much good because they don't really have much to lose in anything because they've been restricted in a lot of their commercial thing. But China would lose a lot of let's say social credit in the world. And I think just like what they're doing in East Turkestan against the Uyghurs, it's another human rights problem that they're doing.